Good morning, readers. Well, today is an exciting day if you are waiting for a new release in the Parks Pat Mystery Series. Today I'm releasing not one, not two, but three books in the Parks Pat Mystery Series. Book 10, Echoes of the Engine, which takes place in Pierce State Park. Barb Forrest says, I so enjoy these Parks Pat books. They're a quick read, which is often perfect for my reading schedule. They're also a great procedural mystery. I love the characters and the setting. Perfect read. Book 11, Bench with a View, which takes place in Carburn Park. Kim says, I was glued to the pages as Margie doggedly pursued one clue after another, despite the danger she felt circling her at every turn. For me, this is the best story yet in a fine series that consistently offers intriguing police procedural mysteries from the perspective of a female Métis detective dedicated to her profession, her family, and her culture. An added bonus comes from reading the detailed descriptions of the many lovely real-life parks the author chooses to use as settings for each story in this series. Book 12, Beneath the Icy Depths, which takes place in Bonas Park. As another excellent addition to the series, Margie has to investigate the death of someone that looks very familiar. So interesting to follow along as she goes to work with her coworkers. So many great characters, and I enjoy the bits and pieces describing the Indigenous people and their traditions, of which she is a member. A reading from Echoes of the Engine, book number 10 in the Parks Pat Mystery Series by P.D. Workman. It was a gorgeous day, clear, sitting at 10 degrees above zero, so Margie and her daughter Christina only needed light jackets, particularly when running to keep up with Stella, who was greatly enjoying her first visit to Pierce State Park. The leaves of the poplar trees were brilliant yellow, carpeting the grass and the pathways, crisp and crunchy under their feet. Margie loved the fall, and so far the season had been mild. Calgary autumns could be beautiful and breathtaking, or turn snowy and deadly. They were impossible to predict. The slight vinegary smell of the poplars mixed with the smoke of portable barbecues set up in the picnic area. Everyone and his dog were out to enjoy the beautiful day. You're so crazy, Margie told Stella as the dog dashed ahead, pulling on the leash to smell another tree, as enthusiastic as if it had been the first she had seen in months rather than the 200th today. Christina laughed and jogged to keep up with them, her long black hair flowing loose behind her. She's so happy to be here. They stopped and waited while Stella smelled the scent post and then dashed on to the next one. Bikes whizzed by them on the pathway, the cyclist serious, heads down and eyes straight ahead, focused on their workouts. Margie watched a family with two young children at the edge of the Bow River, pointing and throwing rocks. Their words were too distant to make out. The ground started to shake beneath their feet. Stella stopped what she was doing and looked around, her tail tucked, worried about the new development. It's okay, Margie told her. That's just a train. It's close, Christine observed, looking around. It is. It's going to cross the river up there. Margie pointed to the railway bridge stretching over the Bow River. She bent down to scratch anxious Stella's ears. There's no need to worry, girl. It's perfectly safe. The rumbling grew louder, and they heard the train whistle. It was a familiar sound. The rumbling transformed into the rhythmic clack of the wheels as they moved over the ties. Then the train came into view on the bridge. Red engines in front and varicolored boxcars stretched out in a long line. The horn sounded again, longer and more insistent this time. Margie watched it, unconcerned. She knew the train was required to blow its horn at every crossing. The crossing at Pierce State Park was safe, a below-grade pedestrian crossing that dipped under the train bridge, so there was no chance of an unexpected encounter between train and pedestrian. A person could stand right under the tracks as the train rumbled overhead. Though it probably wasn't a good idea with the bicycle traffic going through there. The cyclists didn't always slow down, even though they could not see around the curve or down into the dip under the tracks. Something was wrong. The wheels started to screech, dragging over the track as the brakes were applied. The train had too much weight and inertia to stop quickly. It might take a couple of kilometers to come to a complete stop if it were going fast enough. Christina looked over her shoulder at Margie. Why is it stopping? I don't know. Is there a switch? Is it changing directions? No, there's no switch here. I don't know why it would be stopping. They walked closer, watching anxiously. Other park enthusiasts were stopping to look at the train as well. Clearly, Margie and Christina were not the only ones who thought it odd. It wasn't normal for the train to stop there. Margie held Stella's leash tightly as they walked up to the point where they could see the below-grade crossing. The wheels were still screeching as the train slowed and eventually ground to a halt. Then it was suddenly too quiet. Margie gazed up at the still train, waiting. The train had two options, forward or backward. There was no reason to stop unless it was loading or unloading, and it wasn't doing that in the middle of the park. Margie looked up the embankment to her left. There was a worn path leading up to the tracks. Not a paved pathway, but a goat trail people had used to climb up to look at the tracks in the past. Here, she held the leash out to Christina. You stay here. Christina frowned, shaking her head and not taking the end of the leash. Why? What are you doing? I'm going to go up and make sure everything is okay, but I don't want Stella up there. Please take her. Christina took the loop of leash reluctantly. Mom, you should just stay down here. You're not supposed to go up there. I know. I won't be long. Margie climbed up the slope, ignoring the glares of the other walkers looking on. The train was too quiet. It did not start moving again, but sat on the tracks like a cooling tea kettle, creaking and ticking its complaints. Even before Margie climbed up to the level of the train, she spotted a homeless encampment in the trees to her left, a small tent, a tarp, and a bike with a trailer. Someone who had been on the skids for a while, used to fending for himself. Margie ignored the various "Warning" and "No trespassing" signs posted beside the tracks, and continued to press forward, until she could see the dark shape that was partially on and partially off the tracks. She didn't get too close, conscious of the need to preserve the scene. While her first action should have been to check for signs of life, such an act seemed totally unnecessary under the circumstances. A reading from Bench with a View, Book 11 in the Parks Pat Mystery Series by P.D. Workman. Margie really didn't like early morning calls. The sunrise was so late in the autumn and winter that she really couldn't expect the sun to have risen before she got to every homicide site, but she never could understand people getting up so early to run or walk their dogs, coming across fresh bodies when it was still too early for Margie to drag herself out of bed. She'd been doing better about getting out to run before work herself, but sometimes she just kept snoozing her alarms until it was too late to get out. She had stumbled across a body herself on one of her early morning runs, so who was she to criticize anyone else for doing the same thing? Margie sat up and grabbed her phone from the nightstand. She used her thumb to answer the call and held it to her ear. Patenaude? I'm looking for Parks Pat, the dispatcher told her cheerfully. This is Detective Pat, she acknowledged, trying not to groan. Does that mean you've got a body in a park? Carbon Park this morning. DB on a park bench. Margie envisioned a homeless person sleeping on a bench and dying from hypothermia overnight. It had been a mild fall so far, but Calgary weather was not kind to those who preferred to sleep rough. She covered a yawn before speaking again. Where is Carbon Park? Not far from you, actually. But it's one of those little gems that's kind of tucked away, and you don't know about it unless it's in your neighborhood or someone tells you about it. Okay, Margie cleared her throat. She picked up the water bottle from the nightstand and had a drink. She was not an early morning person. I will punch it into my GPS and get there as soon as I can. Tell them I'm on my way. Will do, Detective. Has OCME been called? Yes, they'll be behind you. I'm not sure how long you'll have to wait. Take coffee. Okay, thanks. Margie didn't need to terminate the call. The dispatcher had already hung up. Margie rubbed her eyes. She knew better than to lie back down or even just sit on the edge of the bed waiting until she was fully awake. It was a sure way to fall back asleep. She went to the bathroom to splash water on her face and quickly do her hair. coiling her long braid on top of her head. She didn't start the coffee machine in the kitchen. It might wake up Christina. Instead, she would stop by Tim's and get a box of coffee for herself and the other professionals already on the scene. She'd learned that the Take 12 worked better than taking a tray of filled cups when she could only carry a few at a time. Mom? Margie stopped in Christina's bedroom doorway as she left the bathroom. Go back to sleep, honey. It's not time yet. You got a call? Yeah. I'll call you when I get up. That'd be great. Let me know how you're doing. Christina murmured a reply and fell back asleep. They had agreed that Margie would not wake her up before leaving when she was called out, but often Christina woke up anyway when she heard Margie getting ready. Christina would get the details when she was up, getting ready for school or riding the bus. Stella, though, was a different story. However excited the dog was when Margie got home from work or took her for a walk in the morning, she did not stir if Margie got up before 7. A dog after Margie's own heart. A reading from Beneath the Icy Depths, book number 12 of the Parks Pat Mystery Series by P.D. Workman. Margie was working at her desk, snoozing, if she were to be honest with herself. The bullpen was warm, and Margie had hit her mid-afternoon slump, trying to push through some paperwork but making little progress. The phone ringing jolted her awake. She nearly fell out of her chair. She reached for her receiver, looking at the phone number on the display as she did so. The number was familiar, but she couldn't put a name to it until she picked it up and heard the voice. Detective Patenaude, she greeted. Detective, Parks Pat. Gagnon's French-accented nasal voice drilled into her ear. They're asking for you at the scene. She knew that Gagnon had been called out to a newly discovered body an hour or two earlier. She had envied his going out, even though she didn't much feel like standing outside in the cold today. At least it was something to do. They're asking for me, she repeated. They need your particular area of expertise. Margie's area of expertise was nothing more than having been called out to attend a few murder scenes at Calgary parks, which had led to her being dubbed Parks Pat, and now she was the expert on bodies found in parks and wilderness areas. She also attributed it in part to her Métis heritage. It gave her a bit of mystique, with people thinking that due to her European explorer and indigenous Cree ancestry, she must have some special connection with nature and have learned tracking and lore at her parents' knees. She was doing her best to learn more about Mother Earth and her secrets from Mushum, her grandfather. But Margie had grown up a city girl and was woefully bereft of instinct in the area of tracking or even following a map. It was a standing joke how easily she could get lost, even following GPS directions. But despite Margie's lack of skills or specialized knowledge, she was the proclaimed expert on deaths in parks, and they would keep calling her out to the scene of murders or accidents in Calgary parks for as long as she worked homicide in the city. There was no shaking the name and reputation now. We're at Bonus Park, Gagnon told her. You know it? Sure, I know Bonus Park, Margie agreed. Happy she was familiar with this one. She remembered visiting Bonus Park as a child on vacations to Calgary. Most of her trips there had been during the summer, when they had enjoyed picnics and barbecues, riding the zip line, and playing tag on the other playground equipment. The couple of Christmases she had spent in Calgary, they had gone skating on the lagoon in Bowness. There had been fires and hot chocolate, and it had been a lot of fun. Margie had enjoyed skating and had not been bothered at all by her fear of water. Frozen water held no terrors for her. Boating during the summer was another story, but skating in the winter was a good memory. She had loved spending that time with her cousins and other members of her extended family. So you can get out here? Gagnon pressed. Yeah, you bet. I have my car. It should take me about half an hour to get down, Margie hazarded a guess, even though she had no idea how long it would actually take. Dress warmly, Gagnon warned. Margie had her toque, gloves, and other winter gear in the car, so that wouldn't be a problem. The weather had been mild the last few days, but she knew it'd be colder in Bonus Park than downtown. I'll be there as soon as I can, Margie promised. As Margie stood up and got ready to go, Detective Caitlin Jones was returning to her desk after getting coffee from the break room. Parks Pat is on call, Margie advised Jones. Bonus Park. Have fun, Jones told her cheerfully. Don't worry about the rest of us, stuck at our desks, flipping through dusty cold cases. Well, I guess I've got a cold case of my own, Margie laughed. All 3 books are available at my e-store at shop.pdworkman.com or your favorite online book retailer. So that is number 10, Echoes of the Engine, number 11, Bench with a View, and number 12, Beneath the Icy Depths. If you enjoy a quick read police procedural set in beautiful Calgary, Canada parks and strong female protagonist, if you're looking for Indigenous representation, single mom, all of those things, then this is the series for you. Pick them up today. If you're looking to catch up on the Parks Pat Mysteries series, you can get books 7 through 9 as a single package at my e-store at shop.pdworkman.com. If you're just starting this series, you might want to get the full books 1 through 9. You can get that as a single package that is currently on sale for a limited time through my e-store. Also, book number 1, Out with the Sunset, is currently on a Nook price promo for free. So if you haven't started the series, that is a great way to sample and see whether you like it. Pick it up today. Pick up these 3 new releases in the Parks Pat Mystery series today. Get Echoes of the Engine, book number 10, book number 11, Bench with a View, and book number 12, Beneath the Icy Depths.